G'day mate, 40 here. So there was a lot of hype before this election about the dangers of AI, about how AI would allow manipulation of people's faces and voices, had the potential to swing the election, and it all turned out to be a bunch of hype about nothing. AI didn't play any major role in this election. So apparently the pace of development with AI has slowed dramatically in the last few months. Certainly a useful tool, but I don't think AI is going to be the end of civilization. And I'm only talking about it because it's one of these classic issues that people see in it what they need. Right? If you have a psychological need for total destruction, you have a psychological need for the end of civilization. If you have a psychological need for drama, if you have a psychological need for just feeling superior to everyone else, and so you see this catastrophe coming and normal people are just ignoring this looming catastrophe. If you're right about this catastrophe, then nothing else matters. And if you're right about this catastrophe, then nobody else matters. You're the man, you're the one. You can see that there's about to be another Holocaust. And so pundits and people thrusting for importance and commentators and live streamers and those active on social media are usually optimizing for attention rather than for truth. They're optimizing for meeting their inner psychological needs as opposed to sharing truth. And whether it's global warming or AI or some ecological threat, whatever it is, there's just a substantial body of people who have a tremendous psychological need that the end times are here. I grew up a Seventh-day Adventist. It's a highly eschatological religion. Eschatology refers to the study of the end times. And so that is what infused Seventh-day Adventism, that we're living in the end times. And this meets psychological needs. Now, what type of people have their psychological needs met through envisioning the end of the world? It's not healthy people. It's not people who are successful in life. It's not people who are building something with their career. It's not people who have good relations with their family and friends. It's not people who feel like they have an important role to play in their community or even an important role to play in other people's lives. And so when your life simply isn't cutting it, when there isn't meaning and purpose and reason for you to get up in the morning and get going, you're highly likely to artificially build this need for excitement. And that's been true for much of my life. Right? I remember coming to the United States at age 11, and it was May 1977, and I just spent the entire summer in the college library, Pacific Union College Library, because I didn't know anyone. So I was living in an abstract world. I mean, even before that, I was, as a kid, a great deal of time in an abstract world. What often gives you the strength and the purpose and the drive to read so many books and to spend so much time delving into history and politics and biography is that you're looking for meaning and purpose, right? You're looking for excitement. You're looking for something to connect to. And when I first moved to the United States, I wasn't connected with other people, and so I had to connect to something in an abstract world, ideas about history and great men and how great men can change history and how I could be a great man who would change history. And it's all a dead giveaway that your life isn't working. Right? When you hear from AI catastrophists, you don't look at them and think, oh, there's a happy person. When you hear from Donald Trump doomers, you don't think, oh, there's a happy, well-balanced person. Right? When you hear from people who are proclaiming that America's already in a civil war, that the Nazis are at the gate, or the communists are at the gate. Right, these aren't normally happy people. So, can you be well balanced without being happy? Probably, as long as you're connected to something. My God, it's windy out here. Like, as long as you feel like your life has meaning and purpose, so you can get up in the morning and go work a difficult, dreary job if you believe that your family is depending upon you. And so you may not be happy, but as long as you have meaning and purpose, you don't have to reach. So we see so many people in the online comment sphere just burned out, from Richard Spencer to Nick Fuentes, whose life has just become a stream of meaningless drama. When you have to reach for these artificial forms of meaning and excitement, it's not a good sign. So I like the direction of the Trump transition. Right, the number one issue for me is immigration, and so I like the team of Tom Homan as immigration czar, border czar, Stephen Miller, deputy chief of staff. And so if we could have a more cohesive team this time, that's more pulling the oar in the same direction, right? More rowing together instead of being at each other's throats, we might get a lot more done. It's dangerous that Trump has already announced 2 House Republicans who he wants to appoint to other roles, because the Republican House majority is on course to be only about 2 seats. 2 or 3 seats, and so you take those 2 off the table and you don't exactly have a stable governing coalition in the House of Representatives. I'm disappointed that Elbridge Colby hasn't been appointed to a position. He's the one who's been pushing in various op-eds that Taiwan needs to step up and spend more on defense. You would think that Taiwan would put a priority on its own survival. There's not much indication that Taiwan is highly invested in their own survival. So why should the United States risk a major war with China if Taiwan isn't going to put more on the table? Like, unless Taiwan does more, Elbridge Colby is right. The United States should not get involved. It sucks to be more invested in somebody's fight for survival than they are. And the Taiwanese are not heavily invested in their own survival, which is a poor sign for their chances of survival. Now, they're adapting to the Trump presidency by planning to purchase billions of dollars of American military equipment. So that is likely to get them on Trump's good side. So world leaders are all making plans on how to get on Trump's good side, and they can take a page from the approach by the late Japanese Prime Minister Abe, who aligned a bunch of Japanese trade deals and purchases to show that Japan was strongly allied with the United States. And he did many things that got Japan into Donald Trump's good books. And the best way to get on Donald Trump's good books is to offer deals and purchases that are in America's national interest. So Donald Trump is frequently described by both friends and allies as having a transactional relationship. And that's not romantic, right? That's not necessarily morally and philosophically compelling, but it works. Right? You should never just coast on your laurels in your relationships. right? If you don't think there's any chance that your spouse will leave you, you're not likely to treat them as well as if you realize that your spouse could leave you if you don't live up to your side of the deal. Our relationships are substantially transactional. I think that's a healthy way to understand our relationships. They're not solely transactional, right? There's some goodwill that we can build up, but smarter people look for win-win deals, right? Looking for win-win deals is a sign of higher IQ. People with higher IQ have a better ability to see the future. My God, is it windy? Wow. Can anyone even understand anything I'm saying? I'm feeling good, bro. I had a good night's sleep. I bought the Max Boot definitive biography of Ronald Reagan on Audible. It runs for 32 hours, and I just let it run all night as I move in and out of sleep. And Monday morning, I was up at 3:49 a.m. I was just ready to get up and go. And then as I got started into my day, I thought, I just need to eat. And then I ate, and I still had no more vigor. And I ended up spending most of the day lying around listening to podcasts. I perhaps should have stayed in bed, tried to get a normal night's sleep. Now this night I was in bed before 10 p.m., up at 6:10 a.m. So for me that was an excellent night's sleep, and got the old vim and vigor back. So I watched the last 4 episodes of the Apple TV show Disclaimer, and it got a lot of negative or mediocre reviews, but I thought it was a good show, and it relates to topics I'm talking about in that people read into things their own psychological needs, right? If you have some overwhelming psychological need that's not getting met, then you're going to read into reality all sorts of things that are not there. And so that's going to bother your relationships. Right, there are a few skills more important than the ability to stand on your own 2 feet and to not need validation from other people, and the inability of these leading characters to just stand on their own 2 feet without demanding that other people prop them up and calm down their insecurities led a whole bunch of people in this series to behave in a self-destructive manner. So Donald Trump has appeared to have made a bunch of selections for his new team coming into the new term, and the defining characteristic seems to be loyalty. And here are my 2 big fears: that when you optimize for loyalty, you may not optimize for competence, and you may not optimize for ethics. And so my fear is that this new Donald Trump team will be characterized by incompetence and corruption. That's my greatest fear. So long as the loyalty is paired with competence, then that's a great combination, because it means that you're all more likely on the same team, working in the same direction. So far, the picks generally seem competent. Andrew Cuomo was on Mark Halperin's show yesterday about what the Democrats can learn. Right? They were given the gift of clarity in that they suffered a resounding defeat. And Andrew Cuomo is really good at giving interviews and speaking to the public. Right? He mentioned how the Democrats have to reject their progressive wing. They have to moderate on taxes, moderate on transgender issues. He seems to really get it. He was very powerful when he was giving his COVID press conferences. Now, coming across powerfully on TV is not the same as competent government. And Andrew Cuomo made massive mistakes in how he governed during Cuomo, right? Sending people with COVID into nursing homes, right, resulted in thousands of unnecessary COVID deaths in New York. But he did come across well on TV. He seemed in command. So Donald Trump did not come across well on TV during COVID. So I expect that Andrew Cuomo will make a political comeback, probably be the next mayor of New York City. It would probably be a good thing for New York City, considering its options. So, a lot of talk about China in the chat. China's military has a plan. It wants to be ready to retake Taiwan by military force by 2027. And that will be the second Trump term. And I hope that Elbridge Colby's perspective wins out, so that the United States does not step up to defend Taiwan and risk a war with China, as long as the Taiwanese are not stepping up. And I hope that European countries get the message that they need to step up their military spending, or the United States will step back from its role in NATO. Got out of the wind. This is nice. It's good that countries all over the world are resetting themselves and reassessing their standing, because they were reliant on alliance structures and deals and pieces of paper and tradition, and not thinking instead, how do we keep this relationship with the United States a win-win relationship? So now they have to go back to the fundamentals of a transactional relationship, which is good. It's like having to get a new job, or when you have to move, and then you have to get a clear, hard look at your own finances and your own capabilities. And now countries from Germany to France to Australia to Japan to Taiwan, Israel, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, they're all reassessing and rethinking their alliances with the United States. And they're asking, what do I need to do to ensure that our relationship is also aligned not with just with our best interests, but also with America's best interests, instead of just free riding on America acting as the world's policeman. I hope we get more and more government policy that realigns with what is pro-social. So I paid my own way through college. Right? I paid for college myself. I don't like the idea of the federal government just unilaterally wiping out people's college debts. Right? That's crazy. Right? You choose to go to college. Right? You choose to major in African American studies. Right? The federal government shouldn't be coming along wiping out your debt. Right? Plumbers and manual laborers should not be paying to wipe out your debts going to some fancy college. So the more I read about what happened in Amsterdam, right, the more complex the situation becomes. So yeah, there were packs of Muslims beating up Israelis, but the Israelis played a substantial role in their own misfortune. They vandalized and destroyed a Muslim taxi driver's cab. They tore down and destroyed a Palestinian flag. And they were chanting all sorts of highly offensive things about Gaza. They were just sure to arouse bitter opposition. And then you have packs of Muslims reacting and let's go get the Jews. But these particular Israelis, right, fans of a particular Tel Aviv soccer club that was in Amsterdam to play a soccer match, right, they created most of their own trouble by destroying and vandalizing and taunting and just acting out in a way that was sure to arouse anger and disgust and hatred and a violent reaction. So it wasn't a pogrom. It wasn't a bunch of Israelis who were standing around studying Torah, right? These were Israelis intent on being as offensive as possible, some Israelis, and then all Israelis and all Jews had to pay the price. So I was initially listening to reports in Jewish media, and they made it sound like a pogrom. Then I read a fuller and I think fairer account in the New York Times. And unfortunately, these Israeli soccer fans played a substantial role in instigating these riots. We as individuals and as groups, we usually play a significant role in our own humiliation and pain. And that's what these Israeli fans did. They were behaving badly. Now, you got these Muslim hooligan gangs who have got caught a taste of destruction. And so they're now burning trains and behaving badly. Because some people, they just get a taste of vandalism. They get a taste of rioting. They just get a taste of the excitement of violence, ultra-violence. And then they want to continue it night after night. They want to continue it way beyond the initial provocation. So Amsterdam has a problem with these roving Muslim gangs. These gang members are not exactly Holland's most productive citizens. And usually the more cohesive, more united a country, right, the more that citizens have in common with each other, right, the less likely you are to have these random acts of violence and vandalism, just excitement, just for the nihilistic thrill. And this will only rebound then to the benefit of the anti-immigration parties in Holland. How long till we see Geert Wilders as the Dutch Prime Minister, right? More of this kind of rioting, the more likely you'll have a reaction that puts Geert Wilders as the Dutch Prime Minister. And I wonder how much self-deportation is going to happen, right? Simply talking about the death penalty as a deterrent for committing murder, right? Just talking about it, having it on the books, serves as a deterrent. And the Trump administration and its leading officials talking about plans for mass deportation will, in and of itself, have a significant deterrent effect, both against people planning to come here illegally and people who are here illegally now reassessing their options, and they will begin many of them will begin self-deportation. As long as the Trump team appears serious about their plans for deportation, that will encourage people to do the right thing. And if they're here illegally, they need to leave. Australia had a strong policy that they would not allow anyone who came to Australia illegally to stay in the country. And then under a Labor government, approximately 2006, they relaxed that policy. And then immediately you had floods of boats bringing illegal migrants to Australia's shores, and Labor had to reverse itself. And now both the major parties in the Australian political spectrum agreed that if you come to Australia illegally, you'll never be allowed to stay in Australia. And so when it appeared that Australia was wide open for illegal immigration, you had hundreds of illegal immigrants like dying on the open seas. And so you can make a good case that the more humane policy is one that is stern, says if you come to the country illegally, you'll never be allowed to remain in the country. That has worked for Australia. You no longer get boats trying to cross into Australia illegally. And so you don't have hundreds of people dying on the open seas. And if people realize that if you come to the United States illegally, you'll never be allowed to stay here, that's going to discourage human trafficking. And you can make a strong case it's the more humane policy. Yeah, this new Trump transition team just seems so much more coherent and effective. I love the idea that Elon Musk is now the first buddy of Donald Trump. I mean, they're spending day after day together. Right? You got the world's richest man who has a torrent of ideas. Many of them are stupid, but many of them are likely useful. And Elon Musk played a big role in Trump's election. I hope he keeps that first buddy relationship going. It's a good idea to have the world's richest man who owns the platform X on your side. Like, Musk is only about 50 years old, right? He's almost 30 years younger than Donald Trump. Right? So he has a lot of energy still. He's got a lot of ideas that he can bring to the table. And there's still the reality show element to Donald Trump show. And American elections are in part a reality show. Who do you want to cast as your lead characters? That's in part how people vote. But it's not the mess that you saw with the first Trump transition. And you have a united Republican Congress, House of Representatives, and US Senate largely on board with Trump's agenda. And he should be able to get a lot more done, both in taxes and on immigration. Now, Judge Merchan in New York has agreed to suspend the sentencing on Donald Trump's felony convictions till after Trump is out of office. So it's like a sword of Damocles that is going to be over Trump's head for the next 4 years. So when Trump leaves finally at age 83, he's got that weighing over him. But I suspect the Biden administration will move to drop all its federal prosecutions of Donald Trump. It's amazing just to see how much the world is shifting and language is shifting. And businesses are changing policy. They're moving manufacturing out of China just with the election. Elections have consequences. Almost all the changes are good ones from my perspective. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.